Hi, hello. We are back with Indian English Literature, a historical overview, part 12. Today I will talk about women writers in Indian English literature. Women writers in Indian English literature. The first recognized female writer in Indian English literature is generally considered to be Kribabai Satyanathan, 1864-1894. She was a pioneering Indian woman novelist who wrote in English during the late 19th century. Her most notable work is Saguna, a story of native Christian life, published in 1892, which explores the social, cultural, and moral dilemmas faced by women in colonial India. Kripabai's writings reflect issues such as women's education, social reform, family responsibilities, and the challenges of Indian Christian communities. She was one of the earliest Indian women to write novels in English and to address the inner lives and struggles of Indian women with a realism and a sensitivity. Her work laid the foundation for later Indian women writers like Kamala Markandeya, Anita Desai, and Shashi Deshpande. Kamala Markandeya, 1924-2004, was a pioneering Indian English novelist addressing rural poverty, social change, and a cultural conflict. Her novel, Nectar in a Sieve, published in 1954, portrays rural India's struggles with a modernity, economic hardships, and a migration. Markandeya's work, Some Inner Fury, published in 1955, explores nationalism, personal conflicts, and an identity crisis in colonial India. Next writer is Ruth Prawa Jabwala, a German-born British-American writer focused on Indian society, domestic life, and cross-cultural encounters. Her novel, titled Heat and Dust, 1975, won the Booker Prize and examines the contrast between colonial and contemporary India. Jabwala's work, The Householder, published in 1960, addresses domestic routines, marital relationships, and cultural conflicts in Indian middle-class families. The next writer is Shashi Deshpande, born in 1938, explores women's struggles, identity, and self-discovery in a patriarchal society. Her book, That Long Silence, published in 1988, depicts the inner life of an Indian woman confronting societal expectations and personal desires. The book, The Dark Halls Not Terror, 1980, examines marital oppression, professional ambitions, and gender dynamics. The next writer, Anita Desai, born in 1937, is a major voice in Indian English literature, known for psychological depth and intricate family narratives. Her book, Clear Light of Day, published in 1980, portrays partition-era Delhi, sibling relationships, and a socio-political change. Her book, Fasting Feasting, published in 1999, highlights parental expectations, gender roles, and cultural divides in Indian families. Desai's book, In Custody, published in 1984, reflects on linguistic decline, cultural heritage, and personal failure. The next writer, Bharati Mukherjee, examines immigrant experiences, cultural negotiation, and identity transmission. Her work, The Tiger's Daughter, 1971, explores post-colonial identity, displacement, and East-West cultural encounters. Another work, Jasmine, published in 1989, portrays migration, self-reinvention, and struggles in diasporic life. The next writer, Anita Nair, is known for feminist narratives exploring contemporary women's lives and self-discovery. Her book, Lady Scoop, tells the stories of 6 women on journeys of personal freedom and self-realization. Nair's book, Mistress, 2005, explores moral dilemmas, female desire, and societal pressures. Next writer, Arundhati Roy, born in 1961, won the Booker Prize for the book The God of Small Things, 1997, critiquing caste, gender, and post-colonial hierarchies. Roy's essays include The Algebra of Infinite Justice, 2002, addresses globalization, environmental issues, and political corruption. Mahashweta Devi focused on tribal lives, caste oppression, and marginalized communities. Her book, Hajar Chaur Sher Maa, published in 1974, highlights maternal grief and political activism. Her book, Breast Giver, published in 1978, explores exploitation, patriarchy, and socio-economic oppression. The next writer, Kamala Das, was a confessional writer exploring female sexuality, identity, and societal constraints. Her book, My Story, published in 1976, foregrounded women's desire, personal freedom, and a rebellion against patriarchal norms. The next writer, Shilpa D, critiques urban society, women's ambitions, and modernity. Her book, Socialite Evenings, published in 1989, examines high society life, female desire, and social hypocrisy. Her book, Strange Obsession, published in 1990, explores women's autonomy and personal liberation in urban India. The next writer, Kiran Desai, won the Man Booker Prize for the book The Inheritance of Laws, published in 2006, exploring migration, class, and colonial legacies. The next writer, Arupa Patankia Kalita, writes on women in Assam, ethnic conflict, and socio-political marginalization. The next writer, Bani Basu, addresses feminism, history, and myth through the books like The Owl and Their Pussycat, published in 1996, explores women's identity struggles. The next writer, Nayanthara Sahgal, is a political novelist examining post-independence India's gender and power dynamics. Her book, Rich Like Us, published in 1985, critiques corruption, gender inequality, and political manipulation. Sahgal's work, Storm in Chantika, published in 1998, addresses bureaucracy, urbanization, and female agency. The next writer, Manju Kapoor, explores feminism, social change, and family dynamics in a contemporary India. Her book, Difficult Daughters, 1998, depicts women's education, autonomy, and social constraints. Her book, A Married Woman, published in 2002, delves into extramarital love, marital dissatisfaction, and personal freedom. The next writer, Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, blends magical realism with a female experience, family, and migration. Her book, The Mistress of Spices, 1997, portrays women navigating identity, spirituality, and diaspora challenges. Her book, Sister of My Heart, published in 1999, explores sisterhood, patriarchy, and resilience. The next writer, Jhumpa Lahiri, writes about immigrant women, family, and a cultural assimilation. Her book, Interpreter of Maladies, 1999, examines intimate human relationships and diasporic identities. Her book, The Namesake, 2003, explores generational conflicts, assimilation, and identity crisis. The next writer, Kamini Roy, was an early feminist writer advocating women's education and emancipation in colonial India. The next writer, Bapsi Sidhwa, portrays partition, gender violence, and a women's resilience in works like Cracking India, 1991. Sidhwa's narrative foreground female perspectives in a historical and political crisis. The next writer, Geeta Mehta, combines historical fiction with women-centered narratives. Her book, A River Sutra, published in 1993, weaves spiritual, cultural, and gendered stories. The next writer, Namita Gokhale, writes historical fiction exploring women's roles in society. Her book, Paro, Dreams of Passion, published in 1984, investigates female desire, social constraints, and personal freedom. The next writer, Meena Kandasamy, addresses caste, gender, and social injustice through poetry and fiction. Her book, The Gypsy Goddess, now published in 2014, depicts historical violence against Dalit women with a narrative intensity. The next writer, Arundhati Subramaniam, blends lyrical prose with a contemporary female experience. Her book, When God is a Traveler, published in 2012, explores feminism, urban life, and spirituality. Women writers increasingly address intersectionality, including caste, class, region, and diaspora perspective. Contemporary women's literature, especially Indian women's literature, challenges patriarchy, highlighting agency, and redefines societal roles. Literary awards such as Booker Prize, Sahitya Akademi, and a Commonwealth Writers' Prize have recognized the global impact of Indian women writers. Feminist literary criticism has expanded understanding of women's prose, poetry, and diasporic narratives. Women writers have pioneered genres including magical realism, historical fiction, political fiction, and diaspora literature. They have transformed Indian literature from introspection to social critique, foregrounding gender, identity, and cultural change. Contemporary women writers continue to redefine Indian English literature by blending tradition, modernity, and global perspectives. Their work ensures Indian English literature remains socially relevant, culturally diverse, and inclusive of marginalized voices.